right. I trust that you can hear me. Okay. I'm going to just make sure that the audio is working. Just give me a second here.
All right.
All right. So I think you could hear the mic. And I trust that you could also hear the music before. The topic of today, and this is going to be a little bit more of a sit back and talk kind of video. How's everybody doing? Hope that you're staying safe and staying well from coronavirus. Were you able to watch some church services or watch your own church on Facebook or some other social media streaming site? If you could, if you're watching this, and this is really going to be more of a how-to. There's a lot of questions that are showing up in regard to this topic of virtual choirs, and I want to talk a little bit about those questions today. So if you are quarantining from coronavirus, and you've seen virtual choirs on YouTube, and you were wondering how in the world did they do that? Let's put some questions in there, and if you're wondering what a virtual choir is, or if you've ever even heard of them, let me pull up YouTube, and I'm not freebooting anybody's content. Let me just give you an example of some virtual choirs that are kind of popular. So if you just go to YouTube and you type in, there's a coronavirus briefing. Okay, virtual choir. You will see the top result. This thing kind of got kicked off with Eric Whittaker sometime in like 2015, I think, or earlier. 2010. This is when the first one came out. It has all of these voices in it, and you have this rendered video of all these people singing. Let me show you kind of what's going on here. So this is an example of, this is probably the first one that became popular. It's Eric Whittaker's virtual choir, Lux Arumque. These are incredibly technical, very difficult to make productions. Let me make sure that you can see there. So I actually need to set my output, my volume output, I believe, to multi-output device so you can hear it. Can you hear that? There we go. There we go. Now you can hear it. So I'm going to kind of show you a couple of different virtual choir ideas, and then we'll talk about how some of these are made. So my point is not to rip off an Eric Whittaker video on my channel. Here's one that popped up just the other day for me.
As I went down in the river to pray,
how many of you have seen this?
About that good old
Let me kind of skip through so you can get to the part where everybody's singing.
Down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and
all right, so take a look at what's going on here.
show me the way. Oh, mothers, let's go down.
So this is a virtual choir of all ladies singing Down to the River to Pray. If you're watching, if you could drop your name in the comments so I know if it's somebody that I know. Anyway, so that's a different one. David Wesley is a great guy. He's a friend of mine. He has made a virtual choir, several of them. This is one of them. I'm in pretty much all of them, I believe. So I'm in this one. So I think you can see these. This is In Christ Alone. He has made all of these arrangements. So there's those. Okay, so let's just look for some more virtual choirs. Let me go back to the main search. Oh, this is a neat one. Dear Evan Hansen, you will be found. And I'm just giving you some examples. Now, all of these videos that you're seeing, these are what they do is all of these videos are more or less recorded separately. And then they're put together in post-production. There's no way that you can actually, through the internet, have everybody sing and have it sync up at the same time. I don't know if there's any software, Zoom or Google Hangouts or otherwise, that actually lets you do this live. So whenever you see something on YouTube that's a virtual choir, what you're looking at is separately recorded videos that are recorded more or less to a click track or some sort of audio reference track. And from there, those parts are submitted, and then they're scrubbed for the audio is cleaned up. And once the audio is cleaned up, what happens is the producer will layer all of the videos in special software. I don't know what software was used to make this particular one that you're seeing, but it's probably Maya or Blender because of the 3D rendering that's going on. So these are the super technical ones, and then there are some that are less technical. I'm trying to get some more viewers on here. If you could share this video, I might actually really quick share the video in Music Teachers, because there's a lot of people that were in there interested in this topic. Music Teachers is a Facebook group. All right, just hang with me a second. Okay. Let me show you some other ones. Okay, so hopefully get some more viewers. I just posted it on Facebook. Here's another one. Boston Children's Choir. Let's see what this is. So you have a bunch of kids. I probably shouldn't show this because I don't have permission to share their video. But you kind of see what's going on there, okay? So you've got... I wanted to kind of show you what's out there first, and then I'll kind of dig into the weeds a little bit more. About how you go about doing this. Let me just continue to search. I've never seen this one before. So you have these videos that are more or less layered. And these will vary greatly in quality, in sound quality, in video quality. Okay. Some of them sound really good. Some of them don't. looks like this one made it onto Good Morning America. So if you're watching this, what we're doing is if you're new, if you just popped in, we are talking about virtual choirs. There seems to be a buzz in this topic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my channel, and I'm going to dig back into the weeds of 2015 on my channel and show you that on my channel, out under my playlists, I have a section called Virtual Choirs. If I can find it here. Okay. So I have recorded several of my own, and I'm going to start playing this one, which is one that I helped produce. And I'll let this play for a second. Hopefully we get some more viewers. And I'll talk about this, how we made it, and I'll show you some other ones that I have. And we'll do a little bit of post-production work on a new/old update of a virtual choir. All these geometric designs were kind of something that I came up with, and we'll talk a little bit about software. We'll talk about recording. We'll talk about the editing and post-production process if you'll hang with me for a little bit here. Even if you can't watch for very long, you can always go back and watch the stream again to kind of learn a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes of these videos. So this is a small virtual choir. It's got, I think, about 30, maybe 35 tracks in there. I haven't counted them recently. Looks like there's 7 on the bottom row, 5, 6, anyway. So on my channel, I also put together my own kind of rendition of one of the Eric Whitacre choirs as it came out, with a bunch of people that I were friends with. And this is actually, video-wise, a very simple virtual choir. There's basically just a background and a bunch of layers of videos. Listen to this for just a second. If you're watching and you just popped in, we're talking about virtual choirs, and I'm going to kind of demonstrate some different recording and production and editing techniques that I use to make virtual choirs. If you're watching, also, if you could, let me know where you're watching from. And then we'll get to the one that I really want to show you, which is this Lord's. And I'm going to transition away from Eric Whitacre to Thomas Tallis. This is written in the 1500s. And this is one that I sang all of the verses on, all of the parts on. Oh, look, I have 6 down votes. How about that? This was very early on in my virtual choir escapades, 2013. I would say that my singing voice is quite different from that now. Hey, Ruben, how are you doing tonight? Got got a couple more viewers. I'm going to transition from this one to this one. This is pretty large. Oops. So you'll see here that there are 64 individual tracks. We're going to be talking about software in just a minute. Kind of want to give you an idea. So I'm actually going to take this particular virtual choir. I'm going to let you watch it for a few minutes, and then I'm going to show you all of the files and then the software, everything down to the Logic session and the video making aspect of something like this. So this is 7 minutes. I'm not going to play you the whole thing because we've got a lot to talk about, a lot of topics to cover. So, first of all, it's more or less for brainstorming purposes. Let me just pull up a little notepad. So let's say that you're thinking about making a virtual choir. Let's just kind of do this in webinar format. Where do you start? Well, just off the top of my head, you have an idea. So you start with an idea. So where do you start? I'm going to start with an idea. What kind of song do you want to do? What kind of people do you want to feature? Where are you going to get your people to sing? Are they going to be from one place? Are they going to be from one school? Are they going to be from all over the world? Are they going to be from a monastery or a religious institution? I've seen videos that just featured Catholic nuns. What kind of do you want to do a pop song? Do you want to do a choral work? What do you want to do? What is it that you're aiming to do? Are you just trying to do something to sing because of quarantining from coronavirus? So what is it that you're aiming for when you want to do a virtual choir? Sometimes it's just collaboration with friends. Sometimes it could be, I just have this really cool idea to do this song. Maybe it's a song that's popular. Maybe it's a song that's not popular. Maybe it's a song that you want to make popular with the virtual choir. Maybe you're Eric Whitaker and you have this grand composition in your mind like Deep Field where you want to basically sound like outer space, okay? So what's your idea? And from that idea, where are you going to go from there? So you have your idea. You have to, in order to have a virtual choir, you have to come up with singers. So some ideas is what kind of song? What style? That makes a lot of a difference. Who are your singers? This is actually pretty important because, first of all, if your singers are from all walks of life and from everywhere, you're going to have a variety of different levels of talent, of ability to sing in tune, and all of these will affect your mixing and mastering process. If you want to have children in your choir, that's a little bit of a different ball game because as soon as you start introducing anybody under the age of 13, you have to have parental consent with COPA laws, and you actually have to have a written release form from those parents. And there's templates for that, but it's just something to consider. So who are your singers? So that's kind of under the idea. So let's say that you get the idea, you have a song picked out. So again, what is the what about the song will make it sound good or bad with a virtual choir? Not every song is going to sound good in a virtual choir format. Some sound great. If you have a song that has lots of syllabants, syllabants meaning S's and T's and in some cases P's, but a lot of hard consonants, unless you have somebody editing your video that really knows what they're doing as far as the audio, that's going to be kind of tough. Hang on just a second. So where do you start? You pick your song. So obviously you're going to pick your song. Now, you can't just pick a song and send the song to everybody and say, hey, sing along, and throw it together and call it a virtual choir. So there has to be some planning and some arranging involved. So what kind of planning is involved in making a song for a virtual choir? Well, you have to have a rehearsal track. So plan the rehearsal track. Come on. With a K. There we go. So the way a virtual choir works is your singers are going to listen to something on headphones, and through those headphones they're going to be hearing, first of all, the song, ideally the part that they're going to be singing. So you want something that's in 4-part harmony, ideally. And you want something that has part predominant track. So part predominant meaning that your singers that are going to be listening to make this virtual choir have to be hearing their part. In many cases, they don't either. Some of them might read music, but some of them might not. So you would definitely want to consider having a singer, or if you yourself are going to do this, you're going to want to have part predominant tracks: a tenor track, a soprano track, an alto track, and a soprano track with in that part predominant format. What does part predominant actually mean? Okay, part predominant means that the track that the singer is listening to, they will be hearing their own part louder than all of the other parts. And in some cases that could mean that their part is panned to the left and the other parts are panned to the right, or it could just be mixed so that their part is louder than the other parts. On your rehearsal track, you want to have a decent singer. This is very important because with your singers are going to emulate who they're sounding like. So you don't want somebody that's got a really croaky or kind of scoopy or pitchy voice. You want somebody to sing your song, or if you're going to be doing it when you're recording it, you want to make sure that you're nailing the part basically and nailing the recording, or hire out a a singer on on YouTube or Fiverr or other places that can put one of these things together for you. You also want to have a click track. This is very important to make sure everyone stays together. So a click track is there's a metronome playing in the background, or if not a metronome, there is some sort of percussive click or device that is able to keep everybody more or less in time. Certain songs obviously don't fit to a metronome. They're not quantized. Quantized just means that they have a free rhythm. So in spots where singers need to be on the beat, there needs to be something there in the track that will help to direct them to be on the beat. So once you have a rehearsal track, where ideally you'll have 4 rehearsal tracks, then you are more or less ready to start thinking about the next step in the virtual choir. So what would be the next step there? So you have an idea, you have your song, you have your rehearsal tracks. Next thing you need is a conductor. What a conductor is going to do, and hold on, my parrot is laughing in the background. I'm going to move my parrot. Hang on. All right, I am back. Sorry for the disruption there. So, we're talking about virtual choirs. And in your planning stages for your virtual choir, what is your conductor? How are you going to do a conductor? What your conductor is going to do, they're going to make a video that you'll be sending to your participants. In many cases, you can actually make 4. You were probably hearing the parrot. The parrot was laughing at me in the background. In many cases, you can actually make 4 different conductor videos, one for each part, or it could be the same conductor video that is overlaid over the different parts. So let's take an example. So you'll have your conductor. They will listen to what we would call the full mix of the rehearsal track, and they will take a video of themselves conducting. Now, the conductor video needs to really look good. It needs to be decently filmed, probably against a plain wall or a black surface or curtain or something like that for the conductor video. Basically, everybody will be watching the conductor video. They'll be hearing it in their headphones with the click track, and that's how they're going to stay together. So the conductor video, or a conductor video. I'll show you video layering in just a minute, but basically you want, ideally, you want a separate conductor video for each part. So you'll take your sheet music of your song, and you'll put the rehearsal track with it, and then you'll put your conductor video on that sheet music. And there's different ways that you can animate sheet music in within video software. I know a lady that does it. She's fabulous. Her name is Julie Galkey. She has a YouTube channel. So if she's watching, I'll be in trouble. But she's fabulous at doing that and creating rehearsal tracks or rehearsal videos with the conductor overlaying it with moving sheet music, that sort of thing. You don't have to go all that in, but you definitely need something for your singers to be able to watch, something you'll be able to put into the final production, and then something from there that can be overlaid over your parts so that your singers can watch the video. So overlaying the conductor video with sheet music of the PDF with part predominant audio. Okay, so that brings you to, now that you have your tools, you have your song, you have your idea, you have your rehearsal tracks made. Now the rehearsal, as far as making those can be recorded in a studio or on a computer. There's lots of different ways and tutorials on how to make rehearsal tracks. But now that you have all of those bare bones to get your virtual choir going, you have to send these things out to your singers. There's a couple different ways of organization. Organization of the elements. Okay, so you have all of these different files. In many cases, you'll have a file that's just the PDF of the score. Sometimes you'll have MP3 files that are your rehearsal tracks. Sometimes you'll have videos of your conductor or your part predominant learning track video that, that's part 3, overlaying the conductor video with sheet music of the PDF. So you have these files ready to go, ready to send to your singers. Then what in the world, where are your singers going to get them? These things are too big to be emailed. My friend David Wesley, who does virtual choirs a lot, he actually hard codes these elements into his website, and you sign up and you can get access to those downloads for the next virtual choir, whatever it is that he's doing. So some people organize it on their own website. Some people will use Google Drive, and Google Drive is really popular and very easy to use. Just somebody needs to set up a shared folder and email it to all of the participants of that virtual choir. So basically, everybody needs to have access to these tools in order to submit their video. So that will bring us, basically, organization can be hard-coded into a website, Google Drive. You could use OneDrive. Some people can send in their videos with WeTransfer.com. Great service. WeTransfer.com is really good because you can email files up to 2 gigabytes, and your singers can email stuff via WeTransfer to you, and then you can put it into OneDrive, and you can download it from there. So let's talk about their recording process or procedure for the singers. So a lot of times in these virtual choirs, you'll see, and let me just pull one up. Well, you see in this one, I'm wearing headphones, right? And those other ones that we pulled up, they're wearing earbuds. Earbuds are really popular for people to wear when they're doing virtual choirs. Most people that record for virtual choirs do not have good recording equipment. I'll say it that way. So it's very important that in your instructions for the virtual choir, if the end of process is going to sound good, you want your singers to record in an absolutely quiet environment. Okay. Because most don't have quality mics. You're going to have people submitting to you, and this is depending on how strict your entrance requirements are for the virtual choir. But in many cases, a lot of these virtual choirs, are recording on their laptop webcam. They want to use their phone. They want to use other cheap, tinny sounding recording sources. You can work with that to some extent. But you want to make sure there's not extra noise. So tell them to turn off fans, turn off air conditioners, put stuff up in the in their room to absorb noise. You want as quiet and as clean of a signal. Gain staging. What in the world is gain staging? This is where the technical prowess of your virtual choir members is going to really come into play here. When you have a microphone, that microphone is designed for a certain tolerance before it maxes out or it begins to distort. It's very important that your choir knows how to control the input on their microphone. Otherwise, you'll have recordings that sound horrible and you cannot use them. So, on a Mac, it's actually pretty simple. You just go to your Apple menu, you go to your system preferences, and you go to your sound settings, and you go to your input device. This shows you your input volume on your microphone. So if I had a webcam, it would show webcam. And this is the kind of gain staging that you want to see at the max volume. You don't even want to be coming up to the far right. You want to be somewhere in this sweet spot right in the middle when you're singing at the max. Because what happens if you turn your microphone up, or if it's just set at 100%, all of a sudden you'll notice that the sound is really distorted and garbled, and when you're singing, it's really bad sounding and it's unusable. So you want to bring that down. And some microphones are so what we call hot that you have to turn it way down, so you have to get really close to be able to hear it. So it's really important that your singers kind of know where that setting is. On a Mac, on Windows, it's actually a little bit harder to find. Basically, you just go to Control Panel, and you go to Sound, and then from Sound, you can go to your input device or your recording device, and you can adjust the volume there. All right. So instruct your singers on how to properly set their mic levels. This mostly is a problem for sopranos because sopranos, when they project to hit high notes, like anything above C5, they will max out their microphone and it will distort, and you'll have to mitigate that somehow. All right, so that's gain staging. As far as the video format itself, and we're going to get into software too a little bit later in the live stream. So video format. How do you want your singers to record? Most people, when they have a phone, they think taking a video is going like this. This is the phone. It's actually a strip of Velcro, but this is not how you want to film a virtual choir. Horizontal. If you're going to use a phone, you have to do it horizontally. So instruct your singers. Instruct your singers to use horizontal video. Let's talk about webcam versus phone. Okay, so ideally, when a person is recording a virtual choir, they're going to have two sources. Okay, on one source or one phone, they're going to be taking their video. On another source, they're going to be listening to the track or watching the conductor track. And they absolutely must use headphones. Why is that? Well, remember earlier on in the stream, I talked about that rehearsal track, and there's a click in there to keep you together. They need to hear that in their headphones, but you don't want to hear that in your recorded audio, because then that's just more sound that you need to take out. So your virtual choir raw recordings should have just the singer's voice and nothing else. That way your sound engineer, or if that's going to be yourself, if you're going to produce this, that way there's no other audio in that track. So they absolutely must use headphones. As far as quality goes, you would think, well, we want it to be as high quality as possible, so have everybody submit your video in 1080p. Don't do that. What you want to do actually is tell people to use, if they can select their resolution on their webcam, have them select 640 by 480, or if they're using their phone, sometimes there's a way to change it. You don't want your video processor, whether that's a person that you're hiring out to do the video rendering, or if you're doing it yourself on a 4-year-old MacBook, you don't want to be trying to render 30 1080p videos together. It's just gonna crash your video rendering software. So basically, most of these virtual choirs use thumbnails, and the thumbnails are all layered together, as you saw, like in this video here. We're talking thumbnail size. Even if you make this video 1080p, okay, these are still only thumbnail size squares. And I'll show you that a little bit more in just a second. So no need for HD recording. In most cases, you're actually going to crop these down even further. So there's no need for HD recording when you do a virtual choir, unless you're going to have a featured singer that will be displayed full screen at some point. So this is opinion, but large amounts of 1080p videos will crash lower end video workstations. Okay, so your singers are going to listen and they're going to record their video, okay? So now that I think up to this point, most of us could have figured this out, kind of on your own. But now, and as far as video backgrounds go, try to get a plain, well lit background. Black looks good, white looks good as long as it's not washed out. Natural light source. People will go all out, but they don't always need to. And another absolute must is tripod mounted. Or there are camera mounts that sit on top of your monitor. You don't want people hand holding, because shaky video will ruin virtual choir. Okay, so that's kind of the rules of engagement for actually recording the virtual choir. So from here, what do you do now? Okay, so let's say that you launch, you promote on social media, you get groups going, you get your rehearsal tracks, and you send it out to your virtual choir, whether it's your school or whether it's a choir organization that you belong to, barbershop, chorus, whatever it is. Let's say you send your materials out, you specify your end date. This is pretty important, because the way that we as human beings are, and the way that especially most virtual choir singers are, is they will wait until the day before that the virtual choir submissions close, and they will all of the sudden go nuts to try to get it done. That's just the way people are. We procrastinate. So specify an end date, and build into your end date I'm going to say plus 1 or 2 days for people that decide to wait till the last minute. I mean, don't announce that, but you know, if a submission comes straggling in, you know, that's up to your discretion. Some virtual choir producers don't do this. Some do. I kind of, you know, had a gracious cutoff date, but specify your end date. Basically, on, you know, you want to say like by April 15th, you know, text day. By April 15th, all submissions need to be in. And then, of course, you won't get any submissions until April 10th. And then you'll get all of them. And then you'll get people that are having technical difficulties, and then they tell you that they're sick and they can't do it, and you'll get all of the excuses. It's kind of funny, but it's just the way it works. Okay, so specify your end date. So now you need to collect and organize the footage. Okay, so so now what do you do now that you have all of the files? Let's say everybody records their video, they send it to you, the organizer, the producer. What are you going to do with it all? Okay, so ideally, as submissions come in, you're going to download all of the footage. That's kind of a given, but two devices. One for scratch disk and one for backup. Reason for this is you don't want to lose people's stuff if you have a hard drive crash. So obviously, if you're using Google Drive, you're covered. But if people are emailing them to you with WeTransfer, you want to put them on some sort of device for backup. So basically, obviously, you're going to organize by part. And by organizing by part, we're talking soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And maybe your naming scheme is going to look like, you know, Michael, lining, tenor, you know, take one or whatever. You want to kind of discourage people from submitting 14 takes. Sometimes a second, maybe third take might be necessary if they're just awful and, you know, they need a little help and they kept messing up, you know. Obviously, you want to accept everybody's submissions. The end goal is not to say, well, you're a bad singer. The end goal is to say, here's a virtual choir of people that are imperfect singers, but when you put it together, it sounds great. Okay, so organize by part. Come up with a reliable and consistent naming scheme. You don't want just a bunch of Facebook-type video downloads that's just a bunch of letters and numbers. So at this point, I'm going to show you a part archive for this video. And I found it earlier today, which kind of gave me the idea to kind of go off in this direction. This is the Lauridsen O Magnum Mysterium. There's 64 videos. So the part archive, what is that going to look like? Obviously, these are all my own videos, so it's not going to have too many differences in how it actually sounds. But let me pull up. I think I saw it today. Videos. Okay, here is the part archive on this Mac for this particular song. So you could see I have alto 1, alto 2, bass 1, bass 2, soprano 1, soprano 2, tenor 1, and tenor 2. Now, all of these videos these are right off my camera. These are, you know, they're old, they're low quality, but, you know, this was done in I'm not the greatest soprano, so I'm not going to spare you the painful details of that. Actually, that was alto, but tenor. Where's tenor? Sorry if you're wearing headphones. So you see that I'm singing into a microphone. I have headphones on. Singing in Latin. And there's going to be a lot of imperfections in a video like this. Each part has imperfections. Now, what you're not getting in this particular, this is just the raw footage of that. It's not what was recorded on the microphone, and I'll show that to you in just a second. So basically, you want to organize your footage like this. In this particular video, each part was recorded a total of 8 times, so for a total of 64 different videos that make up this virtual choir. All right, so one of the first things that you're going to do once you get all your footage and it's all downloaded, where's TextEdit, is you're going to want to scrub the audio. This is very, very important. What do I mean by scrubbing the audio? Let's dig into that, okay? So this is going to be pretty typical of a video that you would get from someone in the way of audio if they're recording with a webcam or a cheap, cheapo type thing. So you'll have background noise. You'll have, not a whole lot, but I mean, this was recorded in a quiet environment, but there is a little bit of background noise. So there's a couple tools that I use for audio scrubbing, and the most easy to use one and just where you start is going to be good old Audacity. Now, there's all kinds of expensive, cool tools that you can use for this, but Audacity for audio scrubbing is just quick and it works. And what you do, you have to, in many cases, install the FFmpeg plugin into Audacity. Basically, if you don't know what that is, just go to Preferences and Libraries, and this FFmpeg, that is, it will show you if it's installed. If it's not, it's not. But that's going to be your friend, because if you have that FFmpeg library, all you have to do is take a video file and drag and drop it right into Audacity. So Audacity is going to import that. Sometimes you'll get videos in MPG format. You'll get videos in MOV, MP4. Hopefully not anything else besides that. That's super low quality. You don't want people recording on a Nokia phone from 2003. Okay. AMR files and that sort of thing. So once you get into Audacity, here's how you scrub in Audacity. Well, first of all, you want to look at your waveform and see, are you peaking? Okay, peaking means that is the waveform hitting the top and the bottom. In this case, it is not. Okay, if it did, there would be some extra steps to go through to kind of mitigate that, normalizing and that sort of thing. Just as a demo of what I would do if this was a virtual choir subscription, if this were a submission from somebody, what I would do is I'd start kind of playing it. So usually you'll have these, clearing throats and that sort of thing at the beginning. Okay. I made these little popping sounds to kind of synchronize myself. So you get this gritty kind of sound at the beginning. Well, this is actually good to have, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do some noise reduction, okay? So you're going to go to Effect and Noise Reduction. What you want to do first of all is to grab, 1 or 2 seconds of just the background room sound, which... Okay, you kind of hear that. Okay, so you want probably, I think there was a little noise in there. Okay, So what you want to do is go to Effect, Generate, or no, Effect and Normalize, not Normalize, Effect Noise Reduction. And you want to tell Audacity what kind of noise you're going to filter out. So you're going to do Get Noise Profile. And so you're going to click that. Doesn't look like Audacity does anything, but now double click the entire track. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to apply that noise reduction to the entire track. Now, in most cases when you're working in Audacity, your slider will probably start up here at 24. It will take out all the noise, but it will leave you with a really tinny sounding track. So typically I'll demonstrate the difference for you. But if you do 24, your noise will be gone, but your fidelity will be gone as well. So, and when you're starting with a laptop recorded track, you don't really have a lot of fidelity to start with. So as you can see, what you're getting in here is now down to nothing. See, there's no noise. So now it sounds like garbage cell phone, okay? You don't want it to sound like garbage cell phone. It kind of has that kind of robotic tinniness to it. You don't want that. So I'm going to undo that. In comparison, this is what it sounded like before. So there's a lot of noise in it. This is camera audio, but again, this is going to be representative of something you'd probably get from a virtual choir. So I'm going to go to noise reduction. I'm going to kind of take this in half. Maybe 10 decibels reduction. Kind of get rid of the noise. You're going to put this in reverb anyway. But just to kind of get the audio scrubbed. And that's kind of what you want. You want a good signal to noise ratio. Okay, so my breath support. Stereo. Okay. I don't know why I took a breath there. But that's kind of where you want to get that fine balance of not too much noise, but leaving some fidelity of the original audio in there. The next thing, sometimes you're gonna at this stage in Audacity, you can still apply some EQ before you even get it into your actual audio processor, just to kind of, if you notice that it's like really, really tinny, you can apply some effects on the, some EQ curve on the dry signal. On most things that's recorded with a laptop microphone or a webcam microphone, it's going to be pretty tinny. And so you're going to want to come up with a little bit of a treble roll-off. It's not going to have too much bass anyway, but maybe just a little bit of a bass roll-off. And in many cases, there's you get a lot of boomy, mid-rangey kind of mush with webcam mics. So I'm going to just bring as far as the EQ curve, this is before it even hits my audio processor. Right around 400 hertz, I'll just take a little bit of that out and see if it sounds any better. And at that stage, it's pretty workable. Okay, not the best singing there, but I was recording 64 tracks in a row. So, yeah, and just to give you a little flavor, once you put some reverb on it, these little imperfections will kind of start to melt away. I'm just going to kind of show this to you. So once, in your finished project, once you have reverb applied to these tracks, then you'll notice the problems a lot less. And that's the idea, is that once you get the more and more tracks that you get, the better it will sound, because you can fade everyone back into the reverb just a little bit more. Okay, so that is your audio scrubbing demonstration. And that, again, programs you could use is Audacity. If you're on the pro end, you could do Isotope, Ozone, Waves. There's a bunch of different plugins that you can use for audio scrubbing. There's probably stuff that I'm not even thinking about. So you have all the video footage. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take all of the audio from all of the submissions, and you're going to want to save them in a separate folder as WAV files, uncompressed AIF or WAV files. Now, you'll get some people like me and some other professional YouTubers that will... Did I just say I was a professional YouTuber? That came out wrong. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm just a YouTuber. But you'll get other audio professionals or singing professionals that will record separate audio with a microphone, and they'll send that to you on its own, and it will pretty much already be ready to just drop in your project and go. So the number one question that people ask when they see a virtual choir: what software do you use? Let's see if anybody asked me. Nobody asked what software. A lot of virtual choirs. What software do you use? What software? How do you create these videos? It's not just one piece of software. Okay, we've started with Audacity. That's one piece. Then where do you go from there? Okay, well, you have to have an audio editor. This can be Logic Pro. It could be GarageBand. It could be, if you're on Windows, it could be Pro Tools, Mixcraft. Well, Pro Tools is for Mac too. There's a lot of different audio programs. I started off doing music in GarageBand and then moved over to Logic Pro. So I'm going to bring up Logic Pro and show you what things kind of sound like and look like in Logic Pro and what to do. And we'll go ahead and make a little demo of a virtual choir. So in Logic Pro, let me open up the actual session if I can. Let's see here. It's going to be this one. Is there not a Lawrence and X? Hold on. Let me go back here and do this again. I'm just going to go with this one. I think this one was probably... I thought I had opened it since then and saved it as a Logic Pro X file. Okay. I'll save it as a Logic Pro X file. I'm going to put Lawrence and X. I started all my multi-tracks in Logic Pro 9 and then moved to Logic Pro X. So when someone asks me what software do you use to make these videos, I think they're usually referring to the video software, but very important part of the video is the actual audio. And the audio is done in Logic Pro. Okay, so I'm going to make this more or less full screen. I think you can still see me on top right. Okay. So what are we looking at? Well, this is your timeline view. of this particular song. And each one of these, audio 8 all the way through audio 64. Let me see what is going on with this. Okay. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that was probably a rough start. Hear a lot of throat clearing. Disk is too slow or system overload. So you see each track and the waveform of each track, and each line in that is actually a separate edit, and it's having trouble streaming and playing this entire thing. But when you scrunch it down so that you could see, virtual choirs take a ton of editing. And this just gives you a sample of editing 64 voices together. All of these little lines that you see are edits where I would fade out and fade in phrases. You know. Let's see where these are. Okay. Video's jumping out again. Let me. Okay. Let's. In order to kind of show you from the ground up, that's a finished, more or less a finished product, but this video is actually due for some updates, maybe make a smaller version of it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this whole project, and the next thing in here, edit the audio. Logic Pro, Pro Tools, Mixcraft, GarageBand, etc. How do you go about editing virtual choir submissions? Well, let's kind of dive into it. So new. Let's just say that I'm going to make my video a little bit smaller. Okay. Let's just say that this is where you are starting, and I'm going to. I think you're getting me twice there. Okay, so now you can still, I think I may have like feedback looped or something. All right, here's what you're going to do. I'm going to pull up the project folder for all of these tracks, all of these finished tracks. Just kind of show you a little bit of workflow, what I do. So I'm going to go to my Lauridsen folder. And I think all of the files, the bounces were in here. Okay. Alto 1, Alto 2. Actually, this is not all of the files. Let me just drag these into Audacity to see what these files are. Maybe I can use them. This is wet, means that it's got reverb on it. Okay, so that's obviously the whole group. I'm not sure that I want the whole group. Let's go back. And, well, that's just for humor's sake. Let's grab some of those videos. All right, so let's grab 8 of the videos. And this is going to sound like awful. But some of the videos that I made. And where was that? Oh, I know. It was in here. Okay. Let us make 8 different new dry ones. So I'm just going to... September 30th. Oh, okay. 2008. Video camera had the wrong date. So I'm going to... first of all, noise reduce. Get noise profile. Noise reduction. 10. And I'm going to take my equalizer. I'm going to apply that EQ curve to it. And then I'm going to export this as a WAV file. I'm going to, just for the sake of now, I'm going to make it a new VC demo. All right, I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back to my desktop. And I'm going to rename this as Alto 1. And I'm going to repeat the process for Alto 2. I'm just going to grab a video. These takes are probably far from anything that remotely sounds good, but sometimes that's just the nature of working with virtual choir. Just working with something that might not sound great on its own, but once you layer it together, it doesn't sound that bad. So a little bit of grunt work here, applying noise reduction and saving each part. But then I'm going to jump into the editing portion of what you do with these files. How do you make them sound good? How do you get them to synchronize with each other? And then equalizer. Oh, undo track remove. Okay, I'm going to export this as a WAV. Alto 2. So we're going to make this into an 8-part virtual choir. It's obviously not as big, but we'll give you the idea of what you would be doing. Now, bass is going to be interesting because there were some notes that I couldn't sing at the end. And some really, really poorly sang notes. Hopefully I've gotten better at singing in the last 8 years since I did this. And there was like a bird, another bird singing in the background. And then an equalizer. And I'm going to export this. This is bass 1. Okay, bass 2 is where the low notes was. The low notes were. And bass 2. All right, I'm going to do the same thing. Noise reduction. I've already got my noise profile in place. And I'm going to EQ. And I'm going to export this. So you're seeing this all in real time. There's not really a way to speed this up, but I'm halfway there. All right, bass 2. I got bass 2. Right, okay. So now soprano 1. 2:30 a.m. I'm going to go with the earliest one because my voice is probably shot by the end. All right. I'm not even going to listen to it on its own. This is just the type of grunt work that you have to do to scrub audio. I think those were recorded in 640 by 480 probably. If you have any questions about what I'm doing, just drop me a comment in the chat. Okay, and this is soprano 1. So these are scrubbed audio. Soprano 2. Just going to grab the first one. What's going on here? Obviously something didn't happen right in that video. Okay. And in the camera audio, it's going to be really bad because it just picks up on a lot of a lot of stuff. Export. Soprano 2. And then now we're down to tenor. Same thing, we're almost there. Imagine doing this 64 times. And again, I'm picking this EQ curve because I kind of already am familiar with how these tracks sound. And I'm going to export this as wave. Tenor. I don't know what this was, 2 or 1. That was tenor 1. And then tenor 2. Okay, noise reduction. And I'm going to go to equalize. I'm going to export this as a wave. Tenor to. All right. So now we should have 8 files right off of the camera audio, as if they were submitted by participants in a virtual choir. So let's start layering them up. I'm just going to drag all these into, we're going to create new tracks. Okay, because these were recorded. You'll run into this. You definitely will run into this. I should have converted them in Audacity. Basically, you would have converted it right here. But normally you won't do this because you're going to have some that are 44.1 kilohertz, and you'll have some that are 48 if they're from like a DV cam or a handy cam or something like that. I'll go ahead and change it, but in most cases you will not do this. Back in. There we are. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure why the project change would have affected that. I don't want to use the producer USB. Okay. What I was saying is If you missed it, I just used some little shortcut keys to basically get my start and stop and cut all of the beginnings of all of the videos off. I'm talking about a fade tool. The fade tool is in Logic. It's right here. It's basically this key and this key. When I press the option or the command on the command button on my keyboard, it changes the tool to whatever's in this particular box here. So I use this all the time. I'm going to fade each of these tracks in just by going like this, dragging a line from left to right. That way it just eases itself in. And now if I play, we should have something that starts to sound like the song, but it's going to be super pitchy. It's going to sound awful. Let's see what in the world it sounds like. Oh, pretty rough, pretty rough. Let me see if I can manually kind of adjust things and see what the problem is. It's pretty rough. Okay, so now I've lost my hang on, I got to get my audio from Logic back. I need multi-output device. I need to go back into my audio MIDI. Okay, and then I need to go. Let's see if this works. Who would have thought? Okay, that's not working. What if I do this? Sunflower. Hang on. Let me close and reopen Logic. I'm going to save this as sometimes that will help. I'm going to do desktop. This is going to be new VC. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me a little bit here. I'm going to close Logic and open it back up. Okay, that's set to Sunflower. Just giving Logic just a second to open. Audio should be set to multi-output device. See if you can hear now. So I appear to have lost my... Why is that happening? There we are. Now we're back. Okay. All right, before it gets too painful, I'm going to stop it there. Because we're going to learn how to mitigate all these audio files together. So when you drag all your files in your project, obviously you have a bunch of different start and stop time. You have, and this is what you'll get with virtual choirs, okay? You'll get some spots that sound great, and then other spots that... All right, so let's dive into the weeds of editing, okay? So with Logic Pro and with other programs, there's very useful tools, which I'll show you. One of them is a time stretch tool, and the other one is a cut and fade tool. So I already showed you the fade tool. The cut tool is going to be very useful. So I'm going to hit T on my keyboard. I'm going to go to, where's that scissors tool? 5. T5. I use this all the time. I'm just going to put a cut between each of these phrases, because you hear there's like a lot of it's just like lots of clicks and stuff in the background. We'll kind of mitigate those, and we'll kind of go from here. What's this? Oh, it's a clear throat there. So basically, let's just start from... You kind of want to start with an average of... So this is kind of a good place because everybody was together there. Okay, so let's work on this first phrase. Okay. First of all, we want everybody to start together. So we have between the soprano, I'm going to solo soprano. Not great. Again there. And then alto starts. Okay. Okay, so between the three, basically it seems like the starting point is right about here for this particular phrase. You see the alto is way in behind that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little cut here with my cut tool, and then I'm going to mitigate this phrase to the left. But then, of course, it's going to start too fast. So it moves right about here. So I'm basically just going to chop this phrase up a little bit. Okay, so once I've got it started at the right place, and you see this, so the soprano 1 starts first. You go, okay, so first of all, I'm going to get the alto. I'm going to make a hard cut right at the beginning of the phrase, because I'm going to stretch or dilate this phrase with my stretch tool, which is you hold the option button down and you'll drag this. It will just time dilate it. And anytime that you do that, the phrase that it comes up against next to, you hear there's a click. Hear that click? So that's where your fade tool is going to come in. You're going to use your fade tool. You hold option, your command down on your keyboard, and you're going to butterfly this. Okay, butterfly means that you go one direction, and then you go the other direction, and it creates an X. And basically, it's like a little Band-Aid you'll see all over my edits. Okay, so that's what you want. Let's add this to soprano 2. Okay. Okay. There's still a bit of background noise. This is just for demonstration, just to kind of show you what's up. Problem in the alto 1 part is that it looks like I took a breath. I'm like, okay, so once that note starts, okay, here's where the note starts. Okay, again, the same thing. I'm going to butterfly transition this with my cut tool. I'm going to take this gap out. I'm going to take this gap out, delete this gap, and I'm going to time stretch this direction to the right, and then I'm going to butterfly this with my fade tool. I'm going to butterfly this one just in case there's a click there. Okay, and you see this track has a lot of background noise. I'm going to take this, going to go like this, so that it fades out. Okay, when there's reverb, you won't notice that awkward fall off. And then this phrase too is like there's like a little tiny gap. So I'm going to bring this gap over, stretch this to fill that gap, and then that Band-Aid transition will. Okay, still not great fidelity on the audio because I'm using the audio straight from the camera, but it gives you an idea. So let's bring in the soprano 1 track. I'm going to bring this fade over here. And this is just basic audio editing. Okay, so this phrase here, you could probably, you want to be careful how you do this because sometimes if you time stretch things too much, it will start to sound wavery, like the vibrato will be too fast. But in that case, it was okay. So I just kind of brought that one in line, so my starting point's like right at this little tick here. Okay, so you see a catch breath in the alto 1 part right there. I'm going to take that breath out with a little hard cut and a fade. I can see the breath. It's right there. If you zoom up on it, just because I know what I'm looking for, but you can see here's a little breath. And if you're not sure which track it is, just isolate it so that it's just soloing that one track. Oh, see, actually, I was wrong. That we might need. Okay, the breath is in the soprano 1 part. Here's the catch breath. So I'm going to isolate that with a cut. I'm going to drag that region. And I'm going to... So actually, I can drag this phrase out. I'm going to put a cut. I'm going to time stretch this a little bit and Band-Aid that in with a fade. So that when you take these top 3 parts... There we go. Okay, so we're getting there. You'll still see that there's stuff that's not happening at the same time. Just making sure you can still hear me. Okay, good. There's still some problems in the phrasing. Okay, so we have moving parts happening at different times. So let's go with, let's just these. Okay, those ones are good. Okay, so the problem is in soprano 1. So I'm going to figure out where those parts are moving incorrectly. So there's something weird going on with the S here. So this is just a cycle range where it loops. A lot of times I'll use this looping tool to find out where a problem is. So first of all, I'm going to make a hard cut here. So it looks like this soprano part is moving faster than the other part. So I need to find out where it starts synchronizing up again. So it looks like by the time I get to the mysteri, it's back on sync. Okay, so I know it's correct here. So I'm going to put a hard cut here. And so it looks like I just... This is just an experiment to see if this makes it line up. Okay, pretty close. I'm going to Band-Aid this to see if that... Okay, that kind of worked. Actually did work. So I'm going to fill this gap with a little bit of time stretching. So I'm just going to time stretch this to the right a little bit and then Band-Aid that in. Okay. Let's see what the alto 2 is doing. So it kind of gets you a baseline of like this is the way it's kind of supposed to sound. So I'm noticing some problems right away. Okay, something moved at the wrong time there. Okay. Okay, so this is correct where it lined up there. I'm going to get rid of this fade for a second. Remove fade. I'm going to drag this to the right, and then I'm going to time stretch this. Usually works best to time stretch from right to left for some reason. Doesn't like it going the other direction. So I'm then going to Band-Aid this in, and let's see if we're closer. Okay, yeah, sounds better. Okay, so you see I started the M of Magnum well before I should have in alto 2. I was like, Mag. So I'm going to bring that back into line. Okay, and it's okay right here. And I'm going to bring this in just a little bit so that it's kind of with the other phrases. Yeah, I'm shortening the direction of the And of course, you don't want to leave a gap here, so you want to fill that in with the previous phrase. This is just basic editing. Okay, and then same thing at the end of this phrase. Gonna bring that back in. Okay, something was late. I think it's between the two alto parts. Yeah, definitely something wrong. Yeah, kind of a pitchy note for me, really, but also late. So I'm going to bring this, basically, I think it starts here. Back here, it starts correctly, but then it's just late. So I'm going to just kind of put a cut here. I'm going to time stretch backwards this way, move this phrase a little bit, and time stretch this forward. And let's see if that worked. Close. I'm going to bring this phrase, well, I'm going to undo because I don't like the way that it moved. Obviously, there's still a lot of pitch problems here, which I'll show you that in a little bit. Okay, still not great, but this is just a demonstration. Let's bring in the next part, and we'll make just a little thing. Whoa! Look how I scooped into that, huh? Okay, noticing problems right off the bat. And I thought I knew what I was doing. Okay, let's see if this works. Nope. Let's see if that does it. Nope, it's not what I want to do. Okay, pretty good so far. Still a lot of pitch problems. Okay. Let's bring in the next tenor part. And problems right off the bat. Gonna bring this in and see what it sounds. Okay, that part was late. Just by a little bit. I'm gonna bring this over, time stretch this phrase to match. Bring this over, time stretch. Well, I don't need to stretch this one. I just need to bring it up and band-aid it next to that one. Okay, now it's really falling behind. You can kind of see where it's supposed to line up. Okay. So we're just working on the first phrase. I'm not going to do the whole thing, just the first phrase, just to kind of give you an idea of the weeds of editing, and multiply this times 64. And it took me 5 months to do this this whole song of constant work, basically. Okay, the bass is early here. You see that? So I'm going to move this, stretch this, band-aid this. There's a big gap because I took a breath. So I can get rid of that gap. As long as it's the same note, and this is all the same note, I can bring my cut point here, stretch this direction, get rid of the gap, band-aid that transition in there. Whoa, and I like kept singing. You don't need to stretch that, you could just fade that out. Okay. I'll show you why in a minute. All right, bass 2. Okay, Magnum and tenor 1 is actually a little fast, I think, or something's wrong. And then this is a little bit lagging behind. Band-aid this. So something sounds odd with this transition. Yeah, I see what the problem is. This needs to go to the left. This needs to come this way. Band-aid this. There we go. All right. We're getting there. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about a painful topic, and that is pitch. This is where you'll get a lot of criticism and complaints if you do it wrong. As a point of reference, let me pull up down to that down to the river to pray. Virtual choir. And these ladies did a great job, but
Saying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown,
okay, right here.
and who shall wear the starry,
Okay, so you have some like clashing notes here.
and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord,
Okay, so that's not really a chord.
show me the way.
Okay, I'm not dragging these ladies, but whoever did their audio editing applied a lot of auto-tune to the voices because they locked in, but they locked into the wrong notes.
Oh, fathers, let's go down, come on down.
So I know those ladies weren't hearing like those jazz type chords.
Oh, fathers, let's go down, down in the river to pray.
Of course, everything's like perfectly in tune, but then you have these like random chord clusters where their engineer auto-tuned things to the wrong note. So let's talk about tuning and pitch correction. I do use pitch correction, but I try to use it in a very transparent and responsible manner. Pitch correction is one of those things that if you rely on it too much as a crutch, it can really harm your audio and make it sound flat and robotic. If you know what you're doing, you can apply it to pretty decent effect. So let's start with just the soprano part. I'm going to solo that. Okay, so you hear like a lot of wavering like in my vibrato, but more than just vibrato. It's supposed to sound like oh, but it doesn't. It sounds oh. There's too much wavering going on for my taste. And my soprano technique has improved since this video was recorded, but let's work with some pitch flex pitch. So in Logic, there's a tool called Flex Pitch. There's also Melodyne, which is a separate thing. But let's talk about Flex Pitch because it's pretty fast and easy to use. So what you do is you double click your track. It brings it up down here. And here is your Flex tool right here. We want to turn on Flex. And let's turn on Flex Pitch. It's going to analyze the audio. Give it just a second to do that. And I'm going to expand this out so I can actually see what is going on here. All right. Okay, so ideally you want to do this before you start editing. Now that you've started editing, there's spots that are missing, and that's because we did things in the wrong order. Normally you'll flex pitch before you start doing all of these cuts. So in order to get around that, what we're going to do is bounce this in place. And we're going to do source, delete, destination, new track, bypass, normalize, off. We want everything the same as it was. It's just in one contiguous file. And we're going to back this up and let flex pitch do the analysis again. And here we go. Now we have a fully flex pitched track. Okay. So each of these highs and lows are variances in pitch. Still like a weird click there. Okay. Let's talk about the difference between pitch correction and auto-tune. Okay, this is auto-tune, where you go to your plugins and you go to your pitch and you do pitch correction stereo. This is auto-tuning, and this is what it sounds like. Okay, so auto-tuning basically finds the closest pitch to whatever it is and kind of corrects it that direction. And you can auto-tune fast. Not my favorite sound in the world. I like to do things manually. So I'm going to turn auto tune off and use manual tune, which is flex pitch. Flex pitch gives you control over how your pitch is. You can control it in the increments of. It shows you how many cents off you are. The first thing I don't like about this one, and I'm just going to pitch correct this to 0. I'm going to drag this vibrato handle down because I don't like the way that it goes all over the place. Okay. Still, that sounds a little unnatural, so I'm going to bring my vibrato back up a little bit. There's some clicks going on. Now, there's not much I can do. I think that was a break in my voice. But these pitches here, we can set these to in tune, and then from there, we can work on the vibrato to keep it natural sounding. See, and there's these little handles here. Like I could see it's going up there when it shouldn't. It's just... Okay. Likewise, I'm going to get rid of this extra track here. I'm just going to run through the other tracks and put some light flex pitch on them and just kind of show you what normally it looks like. That way you can say you're not auto-tuning it, you're manually tuning it. And basically manual tuning is just light pitch correction so that it's the right note. And okay, so you see there's some problems going on right there where I kind of like broke my voice a little bit. I'm going to bring these in line. I'm going to put my vibrato down a little bit. Okay, now here's a nice thing. Like, you can see, like, they didn't move together. So you can actually grab the end of this and, like, shift it. Yeah, wrong way. And see right here, okay. I'm going to get my cut tool. I'm going to cut this note because here's an example where I want to bring this up. You can't, this is some stuff that auto-tune can't do. So you can see where it changes at a different time. Okay, there's that little, you can bring that down. Okay, still sounds pretty natural. That's what you want with a virtual choir. You obviously want it to sound in tune, but you don't want it to sound horribly unnatural. Ideally, it just sounds like regular people singing, and it's just is better in tune. Okay, flex pitch on this track. Okay, so this one I need to do a bounce. All of these I can do a bounce in place. Yeah. Gonna bounce this one in place. Gonna bounce this one in place. Bounce this in place, because I had all these little edits here. Bounce this in place. Bounce this in place. Move this back up. And then bounce this in place. All right. And here we go. Okay. I'm just really going to quickly run through these so that we can get to the video portion. All right. And this is also stuff you can't do with auto-tune. It's like follow the curves. So this needs to kind of... And there's still clicks and problems in the audio. Gonna flatten that out. Me. Okay. Let me check this one. You got here's the problem note right here. It's all over the place. All right, and let's bring in tenor. Oh, you hear kind of went up a little bit. But these. Okay. Tenor 2. And you want to go over all of your tracks, kind of like this. And the key is with any pitch correction, if it sounds robotic, back it back. You know, it's okay for it to be mildly out of tune. This is just very light. This kind of starts too low. Okay, and then bass. There's still like pops and crackles in the audio, which normally you'd, ideally you might use a different tool like Melodyne, which basically does the same thing as this. Flex pitch is kind of crackly sometimes, and it's a pain to work with a little bit, but just kind of give you an idea of what I do with it. Okay, bring those up. Let's see where those are. Okay, so you see I sing. My. You can kind of bring this up. This is also stuff you can't do with auto-tune. Nice and smooth. All right, same thing with the bass 2 track. Let's just bring that up. This is just basic pitch correction. You could do this really with any software, Melodyne or Flex Pitch. I like to use both of those. If you hear, oh, and some of these didn't quite work right. See, every once in a while you'll get into a situation where it doesn't even detect the note. Sometimes you can, and Melodyne is a little bit better about this, but you can kind of correct it where it's at. Boom. If sometimes you can't do anything with the note, you just leave it alone. Like the bottom part of the note goes down. Just grab it with that. Okay, so we're not going to continue there. But now, how do you make this sound like that magic virtual choir sound? Okay, so first thing you want to do is pan. Okay, so basically you want to pan this like a choir. So panning is where everything lies left and right when you're wearing headphones. So basically, let's start maybe with fanning out basses kind of in the middle. So I'm going to go bass minus 10, minus 10. And let's put the tenors to the left of them. Maybe minus 20, minus 30. Let's put the altos to the right of them. Let's go to 20 and 30. And let's put the sopranos kind of in the middle, like 5 and 5. Basically, I don't know what Voces 8 setup is, but something like this. So it's getting there. Let's now mix the sopranos a little softer. Okay, so now let's talk about reverb. I'll probably just do a master bus reverb. I like Space Designer in Logic Pro. And with a virtual choir, you want something that's basically got a 4 or 5 second decay. Sometimes you have to go to a different let's go to, maybe let's go with a 4 second decay. Let's first of all drag the wet down so you can't hear it at all. And now let's drag the dry down so you can only hear the reverb. Make this like maybe minus 25. And of course, see how you couldn't hear those breaths. Reverb is your friend when working with virtual choirs. Just use it well. So here's the so I'm actually gonna just grab this little sample here, pull over to a video editor, and briefly show you how you'd make videos. The bulk of your virtual choir production is going to be your audio in many cases. Okay, that sounds pretty good. And all of those tracks had a lot of imperfections, but when you edit them like that, let's just bounce 1 to 12. 1 to 12. We go to desktop. Okay, I'm just Okay, so at this point, you have edited your whole thing and you have your video files. Now, what do you do? What's the magic to make the videos happen? Well, I'm going to show you Adobe Premiere, what you do in Adobe Premiere. And there's other video programs that you can use. Hold on, I do want this saved. There's other videos that you can use to do this. So what you want to do is, if you're in Adobe Premiere, I'm going to make a new project. And I'm going to call it New VC Demo. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to close all these sequences. So I'm left with a blank template here. And I'm going to go to my videos folder, which was here. And where was that? Here we go. Lauridsen. Just going to grab the first video. Now it's deciding it doesn't want to work. Okay, now it's not wanting to import. Give it a second to import. Hopefully your computer won't do this. There it goes. Okay. So let's drag Alto 2 in there. There we go. Base 1. Base 2. And ideally, you'll have a lot more than just 8. This is just a demonstration. Boy, this is taking a while. Wow. I think it's slow because I'm streaming or something. Maybe we'll just start with 4. I'm going to change my workflow to, where'd my timeline go? Window, timeline. There we go. Okay. Basically, what you want to do here, and then of course you want to add your audio. I'll only do 4 of the videos just because it's taking a while. My computer's kind of slow. Desktop, VC demo. Here's 1 through 12. You could drag you should be able to drag, no. Drag this into my project here. Here's the audio file. You're going to drag this to your timeline. That kind of gets things set up for you. And then we're going to make a sequence. The sequence is going to be 1920 by 1080. I don't know why it says RE Cinema, but so what do? Here's your audio, and let me make sure this is set so you can hear it. Audio hardware, and my output is going to be multi-output, so you can hear me. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, how do you layer videos together? So, not sure why 1 through 12 sequence. Oh, I need this to be 1080p. There we go. So you take a video and you drag it to your timeline. If it doesn't drag in Premiere. Other programs works just fine, but Premiere's dumb because it's expensive. So things on it don't work right. So I'm going to make a new sequence. I just right-clicked on it, new sequence from clip. I'm going to trim out only the parts that I need. So I'm just going to take the end of it, go all the way, basically just to this phrase here. Magnum Mysterium. So we got that. We got this audio. From audio files, it sounded like this. Magnum Mysterium. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so you're going to drag this. And if you're using Adobe Premiere, which I kind of hope you aren't, but it's the only thing that really works well for this purpose. Whenever you paste something, it tends to overwrite whatever's in this track. So you want to lock this track and then paste it. Okay, so then we want to line it up with the finished audio. So that means just doing the best you can to synchronize it. And let's take a look. What we want to do is mute the camera audio. Okay, my lips are pretty far behind. I don't know what I'm doing with my eyes. I'm like looking off camera. This is not a very well done. Still behind. Now I'm a little bit ahead. So you can drill down in here and you scooch things like in increments of 2 frames or so. Okay. So I was looking at sheet music off screen. My eyes are like darting left and right. Super annoying for if you're trying to watch that up close. Okay, so what you have to do to layer things, you kind of have to scale things down. So I'm going to grab this video and scale it, somewhere in this neighborhood. And I'm going to move it around this black screen by moving my position and my, this is my X and my Y axis. So if I take this, click and drag it to the left, it goes down this way. And if I move it up, it goes down this way. So you can kind of move this wherever you want on the X and the Y axis. Right now, I just have 4. But, you know, a lot of people, what they'll do is in their virtual choirs, this is very, very simple, just basic layering. But they'll keyframe things so that they move, they get big, they'll create a scene that looks like something else, and then they'll cut to a different scene. Some people are using Blender or Maya and creating these incredibly immersive floating stages and all this kind of stuff. This is just how to layer videos. I'm just going to put that somewhere. I'm going to make it kind of bigger. And I'm going to go with my next video, which, this is a base. I'm going to put it down on this corner. And that was 27. This is 27. I'm going to go with 249. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to scrunch this down to the first phrase. That's the second phrase. So here's the first phrase. Okay, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to go back to this sequence. This is where I started everything. I have to lock this track. I'm just going to delete this camera audio by right-clicking it, disabling it, and then I might be able to do it there. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to paste. And sync it up. The video sync is still important, but not nearly important as the audio. Let's see how it looks. So I'm going to move this off this way. Okay, so it's behind. I'm going to move it this way a couple ticks. Still a little bit behind. Okay. I'm going to unlock this one and drag them so they end at the same time. Okay. And repeat the process. These things you can also crop. You can see I've got stuff in the background, but if you want to make it look nice and better, you can throw a crop effect on it, and then you can crop out the left and the top and the right especially. There we go. And then you can fade this with an edge feather like that. Makes it look really cool. Same thing I'll do with here. I'm going to crop left, crop right, top a little bit, and not much on the top. And then bottom. Bottom doesn't need anything, edge feather. Okay. And I'm going to repeat the process. You know, you get the idea. You just repeat and then layer where you want. So, you know, you can make these bigger. You can make them smaller. You know, so you just repeat. Make as many little squares as you can before your computer starts rendering out its max capability. Once you do then, you'll render your video if you need to get, like, let's say I have 8 across the top. Or I'll do, like, this many. And like I'll do like 4x4. Let's say I'll do 4x4 and my computer's really going slow. I'll render this out and then I'll use that rendered file as part of my new project and just size it so that it fits in that corner of the screen. A real quick primer on, so Logic Pro, this is how you do it, okay? And this is not even scratching the surface of what you can do with certain programs to create floating stages and, you know, yeah, there is no limit to the creativity that you can have. You know, you can, this is basically where it's a 6x6. This is a rendered file probably, where it's a separate file that she put into another project and animated it so that it moves. Basically, to make something move in Adobe Premiere, what you would do, see this up here is a keyframe timeline. So it will match your playhead of where you are in your project timeline. And all of these, you know, these kind of topics are in a lot of masterclass videos on YouTube. You can go find information about how to layer and composite and do all these crazy things. But the short and long of it is, let's say that you want to move this video from left to right. Basically what you would do is your position, you're going to toggle the animation. And you're going to add, this is a keyframe, okay? So let's say that at this position, it's going to be in this spot. Let's say I want to move it somewhere. By the time it reaches the end, I'm going to add another keyframe. I'm going to, come on. There we go. I need to add a keyframe there. And by the time it gets to that keyframe, I want this to be way over here. And this video, I want to start right here, position, and then at the end of the clip, I want it to be clear up there and over here. So you can get as crazy as you want with this, but so again, you can get as nuts as you want with animation, but that is where you're going to start to figure out the virtual choir. And some virtual choirs, all you're going to do, you're not going to animate at all. You're just going to stick squares up here, render out as many squares as you can get before your computer crashes or starts going really slow, and render that, drag that rendered file into another project like this, and just keep building until you get a choir that's, 30, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, however many squares you're going to have. And that's getting on the road to making these virtual choirs. It's not an in-depth look at a big project. Let me go ahead and pull up a bigger project so you can kind of see. No, I'm not doing anything with that. Let me see if I have a bigger project that I can pull up. Oh, I shut down Premiere. Give me just a second, and I'm finishing up here in just a second. So 2.5 hours of virtual choir instruction. Hope this is helpful to you. Come on, open back up. Open project. Let's see here. Well, I'm not finding the one that I wanted to pull up. I wonder if I saved it at all. Huh. Okay, well, I'll show you one of this one. I should have. This one has, I think, 5 videos in it. Oh, great. That's not gonna work. Let's see the last one I did. Let me close this project. How about this one? Here we go. So this one has 4. Let me see if this is gonna work here. So I layered 4 videos together. This is not a virtual choir, it's a quartet, but you get the idea of how your things are going to be laid out.
There waits for me a glad tomorrow, where gates of pearl swing open wide.
And you can watch the full video, but as far as the virtual choirs on my channel, let me kind of show you where they are. Hold on a second. Almost done. If you go to my channel and go to playlists, and then go to virtual choirs, there's 6 that I've done. This one was a really fun one to do. Most of it is just these squares, and then from there, there's a couple where I pulled in some 5, special singers, and I kind of did some color grading. I have backgrounds. This is like a different design that I kind of overlaid over these videos. I experimented with some different frames. Like these files are each their own render, and I layered these renders in there. And then there's some like flame stuff coming up from the background. So it's pretty. This took a while, but it was very well worth it and well done. So if you're trying to make a virtual choir, I hope this is helpful to you. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will plan on seeing you later, and thanks so much for sticking with such a long stream, but it's a topic that's generated a lot of interest. So with that, I'll be going ahead and shutting down, and I hope that you have a wonderful week, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're making a virtual choir, good luck, and let me know if there's any way that we can help.